Okay, so we are still on chapter 19. This is number 6, I think. This is on specific performance and injunctions. And what we're going to talk about today goes back to stuff we talked about at the beginning of the semester. When there's a breach of a contract, the normal remedy is through an action at law. By that I mean that they can sue somebody and get damages that can be calculated for whatever it is. There are times when that's not going to do the job. It's not often, but it does happen sometimes. You remember we talked about in England how they set up a second court system. They first started with the court of law, and there were so many appeals to the king and so many requests that the king intervened because the courts couldn't do what they wanted, that he set up a second court system called courts of equity. You can only go to court of equity if you can't get your satisfaction in court of law. That is, court of law can't give you what you want. Sometimes the only remedy to something is to have the court order somebody to do what it is that they were supposed to do. It's called specific performance. And where we see this in modern day, because it doesn't happen that often, has to do with real estate. Because it's sort of an axiom of our legal system that real estate is considered to be unique. Each piece of real estate is different from the other one in some fashion, and it's unique. It can't be replicated, it can't be duplicated. Kind of hard to believe sometimes if you grew up like I did in one of those brick ranches that were built in the 50s and they all look the same. But the concept comes out of England where for farming purposes, etc., or grazing or whatever the case may be, each piece of land was a little bit different and it mattered. So, long story short, that was something you get specific relief on. If you have a contract to buy a piece of real estate and the seller gets cold feet, backs out, dirty rotten contract breaker, whatever they are, you have the ability to go and ask the court to order them to specifically perform that contract. That is, that they must turn over the deed and accept the money, of course, and if they don't, the court will put their own order/deed in its place in the register with the Register of Deeds, so it's in the chain of title. So it doesn't happen that often. And every time that there's a request for injunctive relief or specific performance, the court asks, can't there be a remedy at law? Can't money take care of this? The other situation we talked about in reference to one of these earlier talks has to do with a covenant not to compete. The covenant not to compete in and of itself seems like something that would be prone towards damages, right? Hey, they left, they're competing against me now, how much money am I losing? And that is true. But there's also some other factors in there. There are things that are called irreparable. That is, you can't repair them and you can't put a price on them. The loss of goodwill, the loss of the relationship you had with this customer they just stole away from you, etc. So in a case when somebody sues, and it's always in circuit court, by the way, because remember that has dual jurisdiction for law and equity in Michigan. The federal system, their district courts have dual jurisdiction as well. So, but keep in mind that if you're filing in circuit, you don't have to meet the $25,000 requirement because you're in equity as well. So, anyway, back to this. So, when there's a covenant not to compete, it's traditionally filed in circuit court, and it's filed both as an action in law and in equity. And in law, there are some things that we can figure out that are damages here that you owe us. And in equity, there's some things that just stop doing this. Stop causing these problems. So what you're asking for, essentially, is what's called an injunction. An injunction says, not do something, but stop doing something. And the court has that power of equity to order somebody to enjoin them, to stop them, but give them an injunction. Don't do this. Which takes us to sort of an odd situation. And I mentioned this before, another one, let's kind of bring it home now. Let's say that you have a contract to buy a famous painting. The Scream. I know it looks weird, but if you look it up, you'll know what I'm talking about. Very famous painting. And what's it worth? Who knows? It's hard to put a value on it. But you have a contract as a buyer to buy it from the seller for $30 million. I made that number up. And time comes to buy it, and they fail to produce the painting. Breach. What can you do? Well, you might go to court and seek damages that have to do with what your expectation of this deal was. Remember, expectation damages are the damages that give you the benefit of the bargain, i.e., here's the money I would have made after this transaction was completely over. I'm buying it for, what I say, $30 million. I'm buying this picture for $30 million. I got a buyer, ready, willing, and able. She's got the money. And she can buy it for $35 million. So I would have made $5 million on this deal. You reneged. You cost me $5 million. Pay it up. That's an action at law for damages. Makes sense, right? Different. You want to buy this. You don't want to sell it to anybody. There is no market for it. Nobody else can afford it. You want to buy it. And this is the coup de grace, the final piece that you need for your art collection. It's obviously so well-heeled. Good for you. And you have built a wing onto your house just to exhibit perfectly this painting of the screen. The lighting, the architecture, the angles, everything is designed for this. And you have it built in anticipation that you get the painting. You don't get the painting. You're bummed. One of the ways you can get relief is for what it cost you, the cost measure of it. Your reliance damages, essentially. That in relying on this contract, I spent all this money, $1 million to build a wing in my house. And I've destroyed it now because I'm so heartbroken because I don't have the screen. So I should be awarded that $1 million in reliance damages. Arguable. Third scenario. There is no value. There is no way to value this. I'm the only one in the world that can buy it. Order them to specifically perform. Order them to turn over that painting to me. And there are times when that will actually happen because it's unique, it's unusual, it's different, it's one of a kind, there is no market for it, etc. And you can get specific performance. So, that's what I wanted you to know.